I want to start today with a question that might feel a little uncomfortable. What if the thing that you think is helping you, the strict plan, the regimented routine and rules around eating, the all in, all on mindset is actually the very thing that has been tripping you up, breaking your progress, and causing you to continually start over and over? What if perfectionism isn't actually your secret weapon, but it's the trap? I know that's a lot, especially as a former perfectionist myself, especially if you have built your entire approach around trying to do everything exactly right and perfect and following all of the rules and following the plan to a T. But stick with me because by the end of this episode, you're going to understand a pattern that has probably been running your life for years without you even knowing it. And more importantly, you're going to know how to interrupt it and how to move away from that perfectionism so that you can finally be consistent for the long haul. Do you find yourself constantly grabbing convenience food or hitting the drive through because of your busy schedule? Are you tired of your clothes not fitting and wish you felt more like yourself again? Does the word diet make you cringe because of past failed attempts that left you hungry and deprived? I'm Alisha, a wife, mom, fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle coach for women. After years of dieting, losing, and regaining the same weight, I realized I needed a new approach. I was burnt out from trying to be everything to everyone and chasing a number on the scale. To truly show up as the wife and mom I wanted to be and to finally find freedom in my health meant redefining my relationship to food, exercise, my body, and most importantly, to myself. I discovered the power of brain-based nutrition, fitness, habits, and routines to create a healthy lifestyle without restriction or deprivation. And now I'm excited to share everything I've learned with you. If you're ready to follow a simple brain-based nutrition and fitness plan built on habits and routines designed for busy moms and women, you're in the right place. Let's do this together. I'm Alisha Carlson. Welcome back to The Strong Her Way. This is episode 2 of a 3-part series on why healthy habits are harder than they should be and what to do about it. If you missed last week's episode on why your brain is working against your habits, go back and listen to that one first. It's going to set everything up that we're doing today. So let's talk about that all or nothing thinking. Here's how all or nothing thinking plays out in real life. Monday rolls around, you're all fired up. You've got your meal prep done, your workout scheduled, your water bottles filled. You are on. You're telling yourself that this week is finally going to be different. And it goes well. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're checking all the boxes. You feel good. You probably even feel really proud of yourself because you're still believing that this time is going to be different. And then you hit Friday. Maybe it's a dinner out with your family. Maybe it's a stressful day that ran long, or you just didn't get to the gym because life threw you an unexpected curveball. Maybe it's a handful of chips that turned into eating most of the bag because you hadn't let yourself have chips all week long and your brain was done being restricted. Your willpower was completely depleted. And in that moment, something starts to shift. Maybe a thought sneaks in, and it sounds something like this. Well, I've already messed up. I've already blown it today. The week is ruined. I might as well just start over again on Monday. And then Monday becomes the next Monday and the next. And you're back at square one yet again, feeling like a failure, feeling so discouraged, wondering why you have such a hard time staying consistent. Now, the problem here is that what has just happened in that scenario is that a story, an identity, a belief was quietly reaffirmed. On the surface, it seems like the problem is just that nothing sticks. You can follow a plan for days, sometimes weeks, but the moment that something goes sideways or there's even the smallest hiccup, the whole thing feels like it implodes and just collapses. And you end up being further behind than when you started because now you've also added that fresh layer of I failed again, right? Like I've blown it again, and you are carrying that around. The diet industry has a name for this, and they really just call that like falling off the wagon. And then a new wagon comes along that's being sold to you, maybe a stricter one or a slightly different modeled. a better one. But the spoiler here is that the wagon was never actually the problem. The internal wound is where this really gets painful because every time the cycle resets, every time we fail, it reinforces a story that maybe I just don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I'm never going to figure this out. There's something wrong with me. That other people can somehow do this, but for whatever reason, I can't. And there's something fundamentally broken about your relationship with food or your body. That story isn't entirely true, though, but you've lived it long enough that it all feels like this ever mounting evidence stacked against you. Underneath all of this is the lie that the whole diet culture complex has really been running for decades, that the goal is perfection, that you should be able to stick to the plan, follow the rules, never slip up. And if you can't, you're somehow broken, you're doing it wrong. But health is not about perfection and it's not a performance. Your body is not this project to be perfected. And sustainable change has never, not once, come from the pressure of doing it all perfectly all the time or from that all or nothing thinking. We just weren't taught that until now. So we keep trying to just white knuckle it, grit our teeth, grind through it. But that system was never built to last. And it certainly was not built for busy women, busy moms that are juggling all of the things. I lived this for years. And the frustrating part was from the outside, it probably looked like I had it all together. I was deep in my dieting era, and there were seasons where I genuinely had what looked like success to other people, losing weight, keeping it off, staying on plan. But what nobody saw was the cycle running underneath it. I could be good, completely on plan all week long. And then Friday night would come, Saturday, maybe something would just kind of give. And I would quietly throw in the towel for 3 days. And it wasn't random. Looking back now, I know exactly what was happening. I can see the habit, I can see the pattern, I can see the thought process. The foods that I had labeled bad or off limits all week had just been building pressure quietly that whole entire week. My brain, which had been told that it couldn't have them, was now obsessing over them, especially as I was getting tired as the week went on or stress was coming up. And the moment that I gave in even just a little bit, the all or nothing thinking arrived right on schedule. Well, I already blew it. I might as well. I'll start again Monday. So I would essentially kind of binge on those things that I had been restricting all week long. And then Monday, I'd be back at square one, being more strict with myself, trying to add more rules, trying to just do it more perfectly out of willpower, either cutting those foods out, trying harder to just be more perfect and to stay more on plan, which ironically just made the next Friday feel even worse. But here's the thing I didn't really understand at the time. I wasn't failing because I lacked discipline or motivation. I was failing because the attempt to be perfect was the engine kind of driving that whole cycle in the first place. The restriction actually created craving. The cravings triggered the binge, and the binge ended up confirming that story that I couldn't trust myself around food. I couldn't be trusted. And the story sent me back to that restriction and just trying to white knuckle it and fix it. I wasn't broken. I was just caught in this loop of diet thinking around food, but I didn't even know that it was a loop. I didn't even know that it was diet thinking at the time until I really started diving in and learning about the psychology behind our behavior, the all or nothing thinking. And the moment that I could see it for what it was, that it was just more of a cognitive pattern or a habit and not necessarily a character flaw, everything started to shift. So, all or nothing thinking is a lot of times referred to as black and white thinking as well. It's what psychologists call cognitive distortion. So, meaning it's a pattern where the brain defaults to extremes. Things are either perfect or they're a disaster, either all the way in or all the way out. There's no middle ground, no gray area. No, I had a piece of cake at the party and now I'll just continue on with my normal day. It's either we eat the entire cake or we're back to having no carbs, no sweets, no treats by Monday. And here's why your brain does this. Because we talked about last week how the brain is sort of this prediction machine that loves patterns and really hates uncertainty. So, black and white thinking is actually really efficient for your brain. Rules are simple: on plan or off plan, good day or bad day, clean or dirty. The brain doesn't have to do a lot of complex reasoning, a lot of thinking, a lot of problem solving. It just kind of checks this box. The problem is that real life is not black or white. Real life can be messy and contextual and full of Wednesday afternoons where you had the birthday cake at the office because your colleague looked so excited, and you're a human being and not a robot. So when your brain has rigid and reality breaks those rules even slightly, it's like the whole framework inside of the brain collapses. And in that collapse, the subconscious programming we talked about last week kicks in. This is where your brain goes into story mode. Well, I'm just someone who can't stick with things. And then that restart cycle starts all over again. There's a specific version of this pattern in the food and fitness world I want to name directly because I know that a lot of my clients have lived it. It's that restrict binge loop. And it goes like this: you restrict, you cut the calories, you cut out certain foods, you cut out all of the quote unquote bad stuff. Your brain, which experiences restriction as a threat, starts really fixating on those things that you're restricting. Deprivation drives desire, and eventually the desire ends up winning. So usually that's going to happen in a moment of stress or tiredness, or when you're just fatigued from making so many decisions and willpower is already depleted. And here's the brutal part: the response to the binge is almost always more restriction. So then that cycle tightens. The rules get stricter, the shame and the blame and the guilt gets louder. And the next breaking point for a lot of people actually happens a lot faster. So again, this is not a discipline problem. This is essentially neurophysiology at work. Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do when it's perceiving that there is scarcity or a threat. So let's talk a little bit about the what the heck effect, because it is real. So there's actually a name for that specific thought of like, I've already messed up, I might as well just keep going. Researchers call it the why bother effect or the what the heck effect. And it's been studied and documented for decades. So one study found that people on strict diets who believed they'd overeaten at lunch went on to actually eat quite a bit more, like significantly more at dinner. Not because they were actually hungry, but because that mental permission structure of I've already blown it, like who cares, why bother, had kicked in. So the diet and the restriction and being super regimented wasn't actually protecting them. That mentality, that restriction, that deprivation, the diet mindset was actually setting them up for the binge. So if perfection is not actually the cure and it really is the trap, what's the way out? Now, I want to be careful here because progress over perfection has really become such a wellness platitude that maybe it's lost a little bit of its teeth. And I'm not asking you by any means to lower your standards, but we are going to talk about changing that framework pretty much entirely. Here's the shift: we're going to stop evaluating our days as either good or bad, like I was good today or I was bad today, and really lean into evaluating it as, did I move in the direction that I wanted to go? So that's it. That's really the whole reframe. Instead of being black or white, all or nothing, and good or bad, it really is just, did I move the needle in the direction that I want to go? Did I make some little votes today for the goals that I have, for the vision that I have, to move myself in the direction that I wanted to go? A good day is not exactly where every single target was hit perfectly. A good day is a day where you took at least one action that the woman you're becoming would take. Even if other things went sideways, even if you didn't act perfectly or you didn't act completely in accordance with that future version of yourself, even if you were able to just kind of take a step back and think slightly different, that is a huge win, and one that we don't want to just glaze over. So if you ate the birthday cake at the office, cool. Did you also manage to drink your water, maybe take a short walk at lunch, focus on getting your protein in at a few other meals? Then all in all, it was a good day because we still took steps toward the goal. And the reality is that even if you ate the birthday cake and that wasn't necessarily on plan, or potentially that wasn't an action toward the goals that you have, can you still learn from it? And even in that, if we can learn from it, then of course it was not a fail and it was not wasted. A good day and good days stacked consistently over time build a completely different life than maybe one or two or three perfect days that collapse every single week, where we're constantly feeling like we're digging ourselves out of the hole. The other piece of this is what I like to call the next right action, right? So, this is when something goes sideways, and it inevitably always will because you're a human living a real life. The question is not like, how do I get back to perfect? The question is just like, what would be the next right or the next best action from here? Maybe that's having a little bit of water. Maybe that's getting up from your desk and taking a 10-minute break or a little walk, a protein forward snack instead of hitting the vending machine. So it doesn't have to be a full reset. We don't have to wait until the next Monday, but just what is the next right best action I can take now? Because here's what your brain learns when you do that is that you are someone who is resilient. You can rebound, you can recover quickly, and you're someone who does not need the whole thing to be perfect in order to keep going, in order to just put the next foot in front of the other. And that identity, the identity of a woman who can keep going even when the punches are coming, is what actually is going to produce long term results. Okay, let's make this practical. Here are three things that you can start doing right now to interrupt that all or nothing thinking before it completely runs away and takes you way off course. So, tool number one is name it to tame it. So, the next time you notice that thinking, I already messed up, I might as well keep going, or whatever that sounds like to you, you're literally going to just pause and name it out loud in your head. Like, oh, that's that all or nothing thinking creeping in. That's it. Just naming a cognitive pattern like that is actually going to activate your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision making part of your brain, or what I like to sometimes call the parent part of the brain. And it creates just enough of a gap between the thought and the action to actually help you step in and make an intentional choice. You don't have to argue with the all or nothing thinking. You don't have to white knuckle past it. You don't have to like try to change it. Just notice it and name it. That's that all or nothing thinking again. Oh, that's that part of the story. The more we can kind of normalize it, we can neutralize it. And then we recognize we don't actually have to follow it and we can make a different choice. Tool number two, the 80% rule. So instead of aiming for perfect or aiming for 100% all the time, aim for 80%. Give yourself explicit, intentional permission, essentially, to be sort of imperfect or just, living kind of normal, crazy life 20% of the time. Now, one former perfectionist speaking to potentially other perfectionists, I know that that can be really hard, especially if you were used to getting A's or striving for those A's on your report card. But there's something that's a little bit freeing and a little bit refreshing about getting that first B, that it kind of takes that pressure off. So we're going to intentionally focus on aiming for at least just 80% of the time, 20% of the time is really going to be where life happens, where schedules go sideways. And again, remember, this isn't you lowering the bar. This isn't you lowering your standard. This is just removing the hair trigger that causes the whole entire framework again to collapse. When there's no such thing as ruining it, you actually stop ruining it even more, if that makes sense. So, most of the research on sustainable behavior change points to consistency over intensity every single time. 80% consistently for months and years is going to produce dramatically better results and outcomes than if you were able to do something 100% for a couple of days or a couple of weeks and then 0% for the rest of the week or the rest of the month. Tool three, the what would help right now pivot. So when you hit that moment where you feel like you've blown it or you feel like you're sort of teetering on the edge, instead of asking, like, how do I get back on track? Maybe you ask yourself, what would actually help me most right now? Sometimes the answer is a walk. Sometimes it's phoning a friend or reaching out to your coach. Hi, that's me. Sometimes it's just acknowledging that you're stressed and tired and you're doing the best that you can with what you have and where you're at. And that's going to be good enough. The pivot is away from this idea of getting an A or doing it perfect and from trying to perform to maybe earn your value or your worth, getting back to the plan and toward care, taking care of the person who's actually having a hard day. That shift alone will change your relationship with food and your body more than following any diet or workout plan perfectly ever could. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I know I do this. I've always done this, but actually changing the pattern feels really overwhelming, or I just don't really know how to start applying this. That's exactly why we built what we built. It's called the Fit and Fueled Foundation. It's a $27 micro course specifically designed for women who are feeling really burned out and done with that restart cycle. And they're actually ready to start rewiring the patterns that are driving all of the behavior. Inside, you'll find short little mini trainings. We're talking under 20 minutes each that walk you through mindset work, habit science, the movement strategy, and the nutrition approach that actually makes all of this stuff stick for the long haul. Not because you're white knuckling harder or you're trying to do it more perfectly, but because instead of working against your brain, you're actually starting to work with your brain. There's also, of course, worksheets and templates to help you begin to apply this to real life, not some perfect imaginary life for someday when you have zero stress and an extra 2 hours in your day, because let's be real, that's not going to happen anytime soon, but your actual life right now in this season. And then there's also going to be access to, there's a private community of women doing this work alongside you, which honestly is one of the most underrated parts of change. You need to be around other women who are working on some of the same things that you are, who get what you're working on and how you're working on it. The link is in the show notes. So if you've been living in that all or nothing cycle for a year, this is your way out. And it costs less than most people spend on coffee drinks out. Not that I'm against any coffee drinks or anything like that, but for $27 and lifetime access, this really couldn't be a better way to take that next step and begin applying what you are learning here on the show. Imagine a Friday night where something goes sideways. Maybe dinner wasn't what you had planned, you missed the workout, you had the dessert, and instead of the spiral, you just continue. There's no shame, no I'll start over Monday, no punishing yourself the next day by working out harder or being more strict. Just, okay, that happened. Let's move on. What's next? This is not a fantasy, or at least it doesn't have to be. This is a skill, and like every skill, it's learnable. It's not reserved for people with more willpower or more discipline or better genes or fewer responsibilities. It's actually available to you right now, exactly where you're at and as you are. The all or nothing thinking trap loses its power the moment that you can see it for what it is. And now you can see it. You can start to call it out. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up this series with an episode that's going to tie all of this together. It's the identity shift that makes all of this not just possible, but sustainable. How you stop trying to change your behavior and start actually becoming a different version of yourself. It's the best one yet in this little series, and I mean that. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And until then, give yourself a little grace this week, not because you don't have high standards, but because grace is actually how change starts to happen. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to The Strong Her Way. If you're ready to redefine your relationship with food, exercise, and yourself, remember, it's all about building habits and routines that fit into your busy life without restriction or deprivation. I hope today's episode inspired you to take the next step on your journey to a healthier, happier you. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you found this helpful, please leave a review and share it with other women who need a little extra encouragement. Together, we can all become stronger. Until next time, stay strong and keep moving forward.